Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of Generation GC. We're going to be talking about Cold Song this week from Generation RX. Last week, we talked about Cars Full of People from Youth Authority, and next week, we'll be talking about a song from the band's self-titled album, Good Charlotte. By the way, oh my gosh, we've made it through Good Charlotte's albums, all 7 of them, twice. That's pretty cool. My guest today is Sam Warren. Sam Warren is from New Jersey. She is a storm chaser enthusiast and nerd, and she loves tacos and pop punk. You can either find her napping at a show or making a "that's what she said" joke. Sam and I met at summer camp when we were teenagers, obviously bonded over our love of Good Charlotte, among other things, and we've stayed in touch and gone to a whole lot of shows together over the years. So I was very, very happy to have her on the show. I actually had a whole lot of anxiety while we were recording this episode, so it was a pretty odd place for me to be in, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think we had a lot of great things to say, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. Now, this is definitely a song that opens the door for some pretty serious discussion surrounding things like mental health and relationships, but the episode itself doesn't get very intense or graphic or detailed in that way, but I will put links to resources in the show notes since I think it's important to know how and where you can get help. As a reminder, please visit blacklivesmatters.card.co for how you can help in the Black Lives Matter and anti-police brutality movement, as well as allcards.card.co. Go to these and you'll find info on protests, info on where to donate. If you can't donate money, there are videos to watch and playlists to stream that'll donate the revenue. It'll have info on how to educate yourself as well as petitions to sign. Please keep doing that. It takes like 2 seconds to sign a petition, and showing your support means so much, and it really makes a difference. Finally, Generation GC stickers are here. Probably you guys have seen pictures on social media by now, but if you haven't, they look so cool. They're holographic. They're very, very awesome. Do you want some stickers? So you have a few options. Number 1, you can support the show on Anchor. That helps me sustain the show and have the right equipment, headphones, microphones, and do things like print stickers and get them mailed to you guys and just keep the show going. Number 2, you can donate to any organization listed at blacklivesmatters.card.co. I thought that would be a good way to encourage you guys to get involved. So you're going to support the show or you're going to make a donation. And you are going to send me a screenshot of that support or donation, as well as your mailing address. You can DM me on Twitter or Instagram at GenerationGCPod, P-O-D, or email generationgcpod@gmail.com. And then if you do that, I will mail you stickers. I think the stickers look awesome, and I want to send them to everyone. I'll also occasionally tweet or post on the Instagram story about other ways you guys can get stickers, whether that's good deeds you can do or ways to help spread the word about the show. So make sure you're following Generation GC on socials. That's about it for this intro. Thank you all for tuning in. And on to the episode.
Hello, Sam. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is crazy.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to have you on, and we're recording this May 19th, listeners. As you all probably know, I tend to record pretty far out due to like how niche the episodes are, so I plan super far in advance, record pretty far out. Tomorrow we are dropping an episode on The Outfield featuring Kate Kunzman from 18th and Addison, and Sam got a little shout out on that episode. So if you listen to that episode and you were like, oh, who's this cool chick that toured with 18th and Addison because she met them at a Good Charlotte show, she's on the show right now.
Hi, everyone.
Awesome. So today our song is Cold Song, which is track 6 on Good Charlotte's 2018 7th studio album, Generation RX. It follows Prayers, and then after this is Leech. And this is a deep cut. I don't think they've ever played it live. I checked setlist.fm, YouTube, I Googled. I didn't see any videos of them playing it live. That doesn't mean it's never happened.
I don't think I've seen anything either, but
Yeah, who knows? Sweet. So, Sam, before we dive into all the details of all things Cold Song, I want to help our listeners get to know you.
I'm an open book. Let's do it.
Awesome. So, tell me, how did you first get into music, and how did Good Charlotte kind of come into that picture?
I've always loved music, and I went through some rough stuff as a kid, and I actually found Lifestyles when that was actually the first time I'd heard them. And after I heard Lifestyles, I instantly kind of became obsessed, and that was actually my first physical copy was The Young and Hopeless.
Okay.
And then that's when I discovered they actually had that self-titled, and then I was obsessed ever since.
I was the same too. I found The Young and the Hopeless first, and then after that it was like, wait, they have another CD? What? Right? I need this now!
And felt like Christmas because I was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize they had a self-titled. So that was awesome in itself.
So they became like pretty quickly, they were like favorite band. You're like, okay, I love this. I want to know all about this band.
Yeah.
You've seen Good Charlotte several times, but what was the first time you saw them?
It's funny because I actually didn't start going to shows until like my late 20s.
Oh, really?
Yes, I was a late bloomer, so to speak. But I think my first Good Charlotte show was right after their reunion.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. I just assumed you had seen them like a bunch of times pre-reunion like I had.
Nope, that was actually my first show. And then after that, we did the Youth Authority tour where we did Side Stage. And then I saw them at Warped at Sea, which was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, so Warped at Sea, so I get very seasick. Like, the kind of thing that someone would make like a TikTok video and think it was so hilarious, like how seasick I get. It's terrible. But Warped at Sea sounds awesome. Besides Good Charlotte, tell me like a few artists you watched.
It was Warped at Sea was honestly one of the craziest experiences. It was so surreal because, you know, you're on a ship with so many different people and so many different walks of life. And then once the anthem started playing, everyone was just in sync, and it was the most bizarre thing. And it was like nothing else mattered. And it was a really cool thing to experience. But besides Good Charlotte's, Simple Plan was actually on Warped at Sea, which was so much fun. I loved them.
I love that. That sounds like an awesome time.
It was a good time.
How was the food?
It was actually really good.
Yeah. I went on one cruise with my family when I was like 18, and I thought the food was okay in like the restaurants, like the nice sit down, but the buffets felt hit or miss. So I'm glad to hear Warped at Sea was worth it. I think if it happens again, I might have to just like load up on the Dramamine and
you need to do it. It's so much fun. And it's funny because you brought up the food stuff, because I mean, you know, on cruise ships there are a lot of specialty restaurants, but I guess it was brought up at one point that, you know, there aren't that many foodies on board, and we're like, no, we're just here to go to shows. Right. We don't not really concerned about the food situation.
Right,
so that was kind of fun.
So Sam, we met 12 or 13 years ago at a music camp playing music, and you know, we bonded over GC among other things. Are you still playing guitar and singing or writing songs at all?
I am not. I've kind of put that to rest, but I can admit that I was terrible. But now instead of doing, you know, that kind of stuff, I'm more now on the PR side of things, which is kind of cool. So
what's your latest goings on in the PR type world?
So I've kind of been on a hiatus, but my latest PR journey, I guess, I was writing for New Furry Media, and I was an editor. That was pretty neat.
That sounds pretty awesome. What was your favorite thing you got to write for them?
I got to write a lot of different things, but I think the coolest thing I did for them was when I was actually on tour with 18th and Addison, and I got to do a bunch of stuff. So that was neat.
Yes. So I heard Kate tell me a little bit about, it was so funny, and it was so funny having Kate on the show, because she was like, oh yeah, we met this person at a Good Charlotte show, and then she came on tour with us, and I was like, oh, I've known that girl for like over 10 years.
And Kate and Tom are amazing too, so it was such a fun.
So I haven't really talked to Tom much, you know, and I obviously had that awesome recording with Kate, but tell me a little bit about like how exactly it came to be that, you know, from meeting at a show, you ended up touring with them.
It's so bizarre because, you know, when you're standing online at shows, you really never know who's standing next to you. And it's true, because little did I know that it was Tom and Kate, and we just happened to strike up a conversation, and I was like, oh, these are two people that I should probably interview. So we ended up doing an interview. It went really well, and then they announced their tour, and I was like, you know, if you ever need someone just to kind of do merch or help out with, you know, photos, or just, I'd love to write while you guys are on tour. They were like, yeah, let's make it happen. And then it was just a really cool experience overall.
So what's your favorite memory from that?
I think the coolest thing was just going from, you know, different city to city and just really experiencing what a van tour was like.
Yeah.
Because my first tour, I was on a tour with a band called October Sky. There were two guys from Montreal. It was an RV tour, so it was two completely different experiences.
Oh, yeah, I've never done, I mean, I've done van tours, but the van tours I've done, we had hotels every single night.
Okay.
So I feel like I haven't done like a true van tour in the sense.
Oh, this was definitely a true van tour. So it was an experience.
For sure. So obviously touring is kind of on hold right now, but if you could tour with any band in the world, that you know, not counting Good Charlotte, of course, because I feel like that's a given, but if you could tour with any band in the world, who would it be?
I would have to say Set It Off.
That was like my first guess. I was like, it's gonna be Set It Off or like A Day to Remember.
I have so much love for Set It Off, so
yeah. Great band. Like, they put on such an energetic show, and they are, I mean, they're super cool people too.
They're literally the nicest guys. I've done a bunch of different meet and greets, and I think I told you I have a Set It Off tattoo on my foot. You know, and Cody is just so genuine. Like, I love that.
Yeah. So let's go into Cold Song. When I brought this podcast up to you, Sam, I mean, obviously, as soon as I came up with the idea for this, I immediately knew I had to have you on. You know, I asked you what song from Generation RX you would want to talk about. Why did you pick Cold Song? Like, what made you want to talk about this song in particular?
See, I love Cold Song because I think it has such a strong meaning. You know, with every Good Charlotte album, they always have that one song that just kind of hit you in all of the feels, and Cold Song was it for me.
Yeah. I'll dive into this a little more in a second, but this is tied for my like top 2 favorites on this album, like in a heartbeat, no question.
It's such a good song.
So let's talk about what it means. I want to hear what you think it means, and then I'll share what I think it's kind of about.
So I think the song means that, you know, when the bad things eventually sink in, because eventually it does, but there's hope and you'll be able to get through it. It hurts for now, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much on par with what I have in my notes here, that it's a message of hope and a reminder that you're not alone, but it's an acknowledgement that life really can be hard. You know, and we've talked about this on other episodes of the podcast and such, but the world has made a lot of progress in terms of like mental health and such, but occasionally you still have like pieces of that conversation where people are just like, it gets better, and kind of don't really acknowledge like, yeah, things might suck right now, you know?
Right.
Mental health, self-esteem, you know, addiction, things that can really, really affect you emotionally.
And like sometimes life is hard, and sometimes people can be in such denial about it that eventually And once it sinks in, it's a rough time. But I think, this song really goes to show you that it does get better and there is hope.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of a prevailing message in kind of all of Good Charlotte's stuff. Like, it can get better. It will get better.
Mm-hmm. And, it's crazy because this song actually reminds me a lot of Hold On in a lot of different ways. But I think, if they do add Cold Song into a set list, I think it would be completely life-changing for a lot of people.
I was thinking about Hold On today because I always, when I get in to do these podcasts, I'm always thinking about, what other songs have they done that are on similar topics? And obviously Hold On, Motivation, Proclamation came up. But I feel like this is a little less in the moment than Hold On, I think.
Yeah, I can agree
and
with
not
that.
to say, that's not to say it's a criticism, just an observation that I feel like Hold On is very much in the moment, you're just so vulnerable, you're at that edge, please come down, please hold on, don't let go of the rope. And I feel like this is maybe talking to someone who's going through rough times or talking about going through rough times, but not necessarily in a specific moment.
Because I think it's kind of like a delayed reaction, something just hit you and now you have to cope with it.
And no, go on.
Oh, sorry. For me, for example, I guess it was 2 years ago when I broke off, I broke off my engagement. Yeah. So Cold Song was actually one of the songs that got me through that rough couple months because it was definitely a rough patch. And I remember just listening to this on my way home from work.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'd have my moments where I would just be bawling, and then I'd have other moments of real clarity where it was this is the right move and it does get better.
Yeah, I definitely went through a lot emotionally right around when this album came out, which I think largely pertains to why this song and Actual Pain were and still are my top two from the album. And what has felt, I think, really comforting to me about this song is that you have questions, right? Is there any way of knowing if I did this right? Where does this start? Where does it end? And I don't know. I feel like so many songs and so much of the discussion in society is oh, yeah, it gets better. Okay, it sucks, but it gets better. You'll get over it.
No, I definitely agree. And I feel like with Cold Song, it really, it draws you in because in a weird way, you're kind of forced to ask yourself the questions, but it's good though, because it's making you face whatever, you're dealing with.
Yeah. Which is a huge theme, I think, on this album, right? Is really looking inside yourself. This song asks, are you looking out? Are you looking in? And I think this album is really forcing you to look at those sometimes really uncomfortable pieces of yourself.
Right. No, I definitely agree. I think it really forces you to take whatever you're coping with and to really just kind of break it down piece by piece and to just fully accept whatever's happening.
Yeah. And accepting, I feel like I should clarify, but accepting, I don't think has to mean you're okay with it and you're not going to do anything about it. Right. I don't think that's a very healthy mindset to have, but I think accepting is acknowledging
your circumstances at the time.
Yeah. And sometimes you can feel helpless. I think right now, a lot of people feel really helpless.
Right.
I've been working from home for over 2 months now, which is it's funny because, earlier this year, I was back and forth with my boss over could I switch from working remote 1 day a week to 2 days a week? And it would, we just weren't sure it was the time to do that. And then now it's I've been working remote for 2 months, which is great. And I'm super lucky and privileged to you know, be able to be safe and still do my job. But
Mhm.
it also is like, I just feel like I'm alone with my thoughts, with my head, like all day.
Yeah, and that can be tough. It can be a lot.
It's been like a lot of podcasts lately. Like I listen to a lot of music too, but especially during the workday, a lot of podcasts.
But that's good to just kind of keep your mind going.
Yeah, no, I think it's very it's important. I found on Wikipedia, which I didn't even know, but apparently, so I will preface this by saying, like, I saw this on Wikipedia. It cited something, but the article it cited I like couldn't find. So that might mean the article is down. It might mean this person made it up. Supposedly, per Wikipedia, the album initially had the working title Cold Song, but it was changed after they realized that pain was a running theme throughout the album. The album, you know, since they talk about the opioid epidemic and mental health a lot, I guess they felt Generation RX was a fitting title. But I think Cold Song would have also been an appropriate title. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think that definitely would have been a good title.
I think I guess a cold song is, I don't know. I was like trying to come up with a like succinct definition, like what is a cold song? But I think that's just referencing all the pain that there can be in life, all the shit that can happen to you and involving you and in your world.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. And I think personally, if they did pick Cold Song to be the cover album, not that it would have a completely different vibe, but I think it would have been different. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, and like an album title is important because that's like the first thing people see or hear. Like they'll probably see the album title before they see the cover art, you know?
Absolutely.
I love this cover art though with the skulls.
I thought that was really neat too when I first saw it.
I'm like super paraphrasing and I wish I had like copied down this citation, but I think Benji said something about how, you know, at the end of the day, like all that you're left with is yourself and your own kind of inner experiences and mental health and stuff. So I think that just kind of stresses the importance of why taking care of yourself mentally and like acknowledging and being aware of like, okay, what's going on in my head is so important.
Because I mean, I've learned from experience that, you know, if you're in denial about something, eventually it really does catch up with you and it just makes it 10 times worse. So even though, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say totally.
And I feel like what I really loved about Cold Song was it really does make you focus on, you know, breaking stuff down bits and pieces and eventually coming to some sort of acceptance with it.
Yes, I think that's huge. And again, like, you know, without sharing too much in detail about like what was going on in my life at that point, like there was definitely a period. It was like, you know, I had this thing that happened and then like 3 months later, you know, I had this thing that happened. I had like a rough week or so after it. And then it was like 3 months later, I just completely broke down. And I was like, okay, shit. I need to focus a little more on figuring out what's going on inside my head, you know, because I think it's important to have that awareness of like what's going on in my head, what might be causing that in order to get past it.
Right, absolutely. And I also think now what I think is really great about mental health now is just people are so open to conversation, which I think is awesome.
Which I think is good.
Because I think when we were kids growing up, it really wasn't spoken about.
No, and we talked about this, and Sam, you haven't heard this episode yet, but we talked about this on an episode that dealt with the song SOS, but in like the early 2000s, like, when you and I were both kind of getting into bands like Good Charlotte, in the early 2000s, bands would sometimes talk about depression or suicide, but not always in a way that was like very effective. That romanticized it a lot.
And I feel like people, I don't think our parents fully understood mental health like they do now, if that makes sense too.
Totally. And I don't want to like blame our parents for that, because it's just like when our parents were our age, first of all, the economy looked very different, and the way that society treats mental health looked very different when our parents were. It
really did. It almost felt like it was frowned upon to even talk about it. And now I'm just so appreciative that you have so many different organizations, for example, that are just so open and honest about conversation, and like, this is important and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it's so huge for me. I mean, there's a lot of organizations that deal with mental health, but something I really appreciated about both To Write Love on Her Arms and Hope for the Day is that they do a lot of outreach. And in the field of mental health, outreach is so important, because it's so important to just have conversations and to let people know that it's okay to have conversations.
No, I agree. And I think it's important to let people know that, right now you may not be okay, but, talk to someone. There is hope. You will be okay in the end.
Yeah. So I feel like I've mentioned this on the show before, and Sam, I'm pretty sure you know this, but I am in a documentary called Out of Sight that is all about, stopping the stigma and starting a conversation about mental health. And I'm talking about my mental health in there in pretty good detail, me among several other people. And I never got to go to any of the screenings for the movie, but Kyle, the director of the film and a good friend of mine for a long time, he told me that like they would always have, they would go to a screening and they would have a merch table selling shirts, right? And he says that they would always have like the most kind of serious, in-depth conversations at like the very end, like kind of after people had watched the film and realized that like it was okay to talk.
Oh, I'm sure, because it probably gave people, the courage to speak up and be like, this is my story.
Yeah, which is so huge. So, yes, there's in terms of like nonprofits, I mean, there's so many great organizations like AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, I think does a lot more research, as well as NAMI. But the outreach is super important, and the research is too, because research and funding treatment are how people can get better, right?
Right, absolutely. And I think as outreach was super important, and what I loved about Warped Tour, for example, is even with all the different booths out there, someone was at the booth just ready to listen if you needed to talk.
Yeah. I got to go on Warped Tour in 2016 working for PETA, which was so great. Like, it was such an awesome experience. And I felt like so proud to do that, because I was like, it is so cool that I get to reach young people who are not just music fans, but who give a shit about changing the world. But before that, I think it was 2011 that one day, it was only like one day of Warped Tour, I volunteered for To Write Love on Her Arms, and like, I'll never forget that.
Oh, I'm sure that was one amazing experience.
It was crazy. It was, I was like with someone else at the booth most of the day, but it felt like I was doing something really important. Like, I would sell someone a t-shirt, and then they would be like, they would just like say thank you, and they would, we'd have like a little heart to heart, and that was really, really cool.
And I'm honestly sure that you touched a lot of people's lives that day without, I'm sure you realized it, but you probably impacted way more people than you think you did.
Oh, totally. I'm sure. And even people who maybe walked by and grabbed a flyer but didn't even talk,
At least they know there is help out there.
Exactly. Which is so important, because I don't, I don't want to be like too meta, but I do think the mental health conversation has come really far. I don't think we're necessarily there yet, because I think there still can be a really big stigma, but and also like why I would love to hear this song live is like, I for one love when I get to hear bands kind of get a little sentimental, a little emotional, give speeches and such on stage, because I have always, I am a music journalist nerd, so like I always want to know the stories behind songs, but B, as a fan of music and someone who cares so deeply about these songs, it's so fulfilling to hear like what inspired them.
See, what was cool about Warped at Sea was Good Charlotte did an acoustic set, so we would get a couple of songs and they would give stories about it. So that was really cool to be a part of.
What did they play acoustic?
They played the anthem acoustic.
Oh, that's fun.
Honestly, I don't remember the entire set list, but I do remember that, they gave background about each song and they were really engaging with the audience, and it was really cool to be a part of.
I love that. They did an acoustic set when we saw them on the Youth Authority tour, I remember.
Yes, that was so much fun.
That was so much fun. That I just remember what I like won't forget from that night though is standing side stage, and obviously I just like completely burst out into tears when they're introducing Hold On. And I'm like I'm fine, right? I'm but I'm like crying. I'm just like emotional,
It was an emotional song because I think, if I'm recalling correctly, everyone had their lighters out, and it was just
I think so, yeah.
It was just such a surreal moment to see that side stage and to be like, this is our little Good Charlotte community right now.
Well, and then what I just remember was like, I'm like crying, and then like someone taps me on the shoulder, and I'm like, oh God, someone's probably like really concerned. And it was just my my pal Jeff from Water Parks, who they were all chilling at the show, and I was like,
I remember that they were behind us when we were side stage. Yeah.
That would also be Water Parks. Anyone from that band would be super awesome to have on this show, I think. Obviously have a lot of ties to Good Charlotte, but they also make really great music, and they also put on such an awesome show.
Yes, no, I agree. And did I ever tell you what happened at that Youth Authority show? I think you were with me when my childhood best friend, who I had no idea at the time, she came up to me, she was like, do you remember me? And I looked at her like, who the heck are you? And so it's funny because, we added each other on Facebook, and then a month later we booked Warped at Sea together.
I love that. Isn't that cool? I didn't realize, I don't think I remembered you had done Warped at Sea with her, but I think we were like buying merch. And I remember
she
you
came
like,
up to us.
That's so funny.
It's so crazy.
Back to Cold Song, one bit of, I guess, trivia that I wanted to note was that they also referenced the idea of a cold song in Self Help, which is track 2 on the album. So the song goes, I felt so bad about myself. I never thought I was good enough for anybody else. I couldn't look love in the eye. I was too broken to try. Life was a cold song that taught me not to cry.
I love it when they do stuff like that.
Yes, I love that. So I guess a cold song is just all the shit in life and the pain, and in contrast to warmth and love and acceptance.
Mm-hmm. And I think acceptance is a really big part of it too.
Yes. Acceptance, like both in terms of, acknowledging and accepting what's kind of going on in your head that maybe you need to deal with, and acceptance in the terms of fitting in and feeling like you belong and that you have people that appreciate you as you are, which also is a big theme throughout Good Charlotte's music.
And I feel like what I love about Good Charlotte is that they really do bring people together.
Yes. It's been, I mean, this show has been so much fun. I talk about this a lot, but growing up, I really didn't have friends I could like talk about Good Charlotte with, like at all. So I would like go on forums and message boards and different MySpace groups and such. But over the past several years, like since I've gotten into music and been working in the industry and been writing and photography and everything, I've connected with a lot of people. And it's been so fun that some of them have been on the show. Some of them will be on this show. I don't want to spoil it too much. But people are just like so welcoming, and Good Charlotte fans are like so accepting, which is really
That's
cool.
what I love about them, because I feel like when we were in like, the middle school era, a lot of people didn't really understand and appreciate punk pop in general.
Yeah.
So
well, they did. Like, it was like all over the radio. Like, so it's like people heard it, but it was like supremely uncool to like actually love it, I think.
Exactly. So I feel like we got judged just by what our music taste was. So, like I feel like for me, at least as a kid, I wasn't really too open about it. But, as I got older, I was like, screw it. I don't care what anyone thinks. And this is what I like.
I was open about it. I just ended up getting made fun of a lot. So, take that as you will. But, I think it's also like, if you're a kid and you are like really, really excited about anything, that just kind of makes you an easy target.
Yeah, but I can agree with that.
I do think one of the funniest things was like, so there was one girl we went to camp with, Sam. I don't remember her name. I think it was like Danielle or something. We're not Facebook friends, so I doubt she will hear this, but maybe she will. I don't know. But anyway, this girl, like when we were at camp, so this is like 2007 or 8, she is kind of making fun of me for liking Good Charlotte and says that I should start listening to, I think, Taking Back Sunday and Brand New were the bands she said I should start listening to.
She really said that to you?
Something like that. But she definitely mocked me for liking Good Charlotte. And then anyway, come June 2010, Bamboozle Roadshow, Good Charlotte's playing. I drive out to Long Island on my day off from my internship, and I get there super early to sit in line and be like first in before doors open. And guess who gets there like 30 minutes after me? Is that girl.
That's so funny.
And I'm like, who are you here to see? And guess who she was there to see?
That must have been so satisfying, though.
Yeah. Oh, it was very satisfying. Very satisfying. But
I would have been like, imagine that.
Yeah. She recognized me first. I didn't recognize her at first because she had like dyed her hair. And obviously she wasn't someone I had like kept in touch with. But yeah, I was like, oh, hey.
That's so funny.
Yeah. But I do feel like since the reunion, I think it's been like slightly more okay to like them, but they're definitely not like a, like I was talking about the 1975 earlier today, and I feel like that band is very cool. And I feel like Good Charlotte is not cool.
See, it's weird because, like, they have their fan base is huge. So,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
whoever loves them absolutely loves them, but whoever doesn't like them doesn't like them. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly. One thing I also love about this song, by the way, is just like the piano that it kind of begins with, and then you build up and you get this like killer guitar solo.
Everything about this song is just amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess there's strings in this song. I wouldn't necessarily think of this song to be the one with strings, but this album overall, I feel like uses strings really well too, which I think is really fun. And that's kind of like what they did on Chronicles a lot.
Yeah, it does definitely have a more chronicle vibe.
Yeah. But it's different, and I think it's like, and this is something that's been really fun about doing the show too. It's like, Chronicles came out in 2004, so Benji and Joel were 25 or so. This came out in 2018, so they were in their late 30s. And they have, I think, a different life. They totally have a different life perspective than someone who's like in their early to mid 20s and kind of just getting acclimated to being successful and such, and now they are both married and have families, and I feel like I wonder like what my thoughts would have been on this album if it came out if I was younger, because as I go back and listen to the early stuff, especially when I was which I was like 11 or 12 when I first heard the first couple records, I sometimes have like different views because like I'm a different person with a lot more life experience now.
It's funny though, because as you say that, on my drive home, Little Things actually came up on shuffle, and yes. I'm like, you know what? I turn 30 next month, and this is still such a jam.
Yeah.
It always makes me laugh. Like, it's just funny going through, the different albums that they have, and I feel like as artists, we kind of, I feel like we kind of grow with them as people in art, because you can see really how much they evolve throughout the years, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, which I love that, and I love that they've evolved in that sense. So, did you get to watch this video that I linked of the X-Men video?
I did not get to see that.
Okay. Are you like knowledgeable about X-Men at all?
Not really.
Okay, so neither am I. So probably like the people listening to this are going to be like, why are you talking about X-Men? So I found a video on YouTube. There's no like official video for this song, but I found a video on YouTube by Jack Snake Studios that tells the story of Jean Grey, who is an X-Men character as she evolves into the iconic Dark Phoenix. I don't know the story of X-Men at all. I've never been able to like understand or follow any of those type of movies, so I can't speak if it fits, but like as an outsider watching this, not knowing who these characters are, I thought it was cool. I'll definitely link this video in the show notes, but I also realize as I'm saying this that like people who are really into like X-Men and superheroes and such are gonna think I'm such an idiot probably for how little I know, and I'm like, oh yeah, Jean Grey, and they're like, oh, they're gonna be like, oh my god, you don't know it.
I think we'll be good.
Yeah. It's a cool video though. They put Cold Song to some footage from X-Men.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's in the doc that I shared with you. I also found a guitar cover that was pretty decent, but I didn't see any like full covers anyone had done. But if anyone has covered Cold Song, I would love to hear it. I always like hearing covers of Good Charlotte songs. So this is the wide pitch. If you are a musician, or if you are in a band, or know someone in a band that's covered a Good Charlotte song, send me a video or a recording, even if it's like a shitty cell phone recording. I would love to hear it or see it. One thing I like to do on this show is talk about comments on the song. So I did not find any comments on song meanings. Song meanings, did you ever go on that website?
No, I haven't. I actually have never heard of that.
So it predated Genius. And whereas Genius gives you like, lets you like annotate in the song, and it'll have like official interpretations from artists. So Genius is like pretty legit in that way. Song meanings was like all fans, and you would just comment like what you thought the song was about. I didn't really find anything about this song on there, but I did find a few nice YouTube comments. So Mary Louise, which by the way, shout out to this person for having a similar name as me. Mary Louise, I'm Molly Louise. This Mary Louise says, it feels good to listen to your songs, GC. The meaning in your songs could easily reach my heart. You guys are highly genuine. Keep on rocking.
That was sweet.
I like that a lot. Helen B says that it was not just the best track on the album, actually best song since The River. And then Johnny Ellis says, I'm already crying and I just started this song. You guys get so much better per album. Keep playing. So people definitely like this song.
And all those comments are definitely sweet and genuine too.
Yes, definitely. Which I like. And that's, you know, even though this is a song that is not like a big hit or anything, there were a lot of comments on that video of all people saying, you know, I just went and cherry picked like a couple that I thought were really sweet, but there were a lot of comments on the video of people feeling like the song really understood them.
I feel that's what I love about Good Charlotte, because they can just resonate with so many different people.
Yeah. And I think that's really, really huge. And that's why it's been so fun doing this show too. And it's like, I feel like I'm such a nerd even talking about my own podcast, but like, I don't even care, because it's just, people love hearing the episodes, and I'll put out an episode, or I'll like tweet that like, oh, I'm doing a song from, you know, this album this week, who wants to guess what it is? And I'm always getting responses and like people sharing like what songs, or like, oh, I love this song for this reason, and their own memories. And like, that's what I think has made this whole thing so fun for me.
I'm so glad you started this, because honestly, this podcast is so much fun, and I definitely think it's, you know, something the world needs right now.
Yeah, I had the idea before, like a week or so before New Jersey like went into lockdown, and I probably reached out to you right around then, Sam, at first. But yeah, it's been like, timing wise, it's been great. And I was, you know, really unsure for a while this year of like, what was my next music journalism, music commentary type adventure. But this has been really great so far.
It's so much fun. So
yeah, it's great. And I have after we finish recording, I have a couple ideas I'll tell you about.
I'm excited to hear them.
Oh yeah. And listeners, you'll hear them eventually, but you know, I don't want to spoil things too much just yet. I always like reading some reviews of records that, you know, mentions the song we're talking about. So When the Horn Blows called it a beautifully rendered song full of pathos and pain, which I feel like is super accurate, but very poetic, very well put. I also found an interview on rockartfashion.net, which appears to be a French website. So this was an interview in Joel that it seems took place in Paris. I'm going to link this interview. So the article is in French. I do not speak enough French to read a band interview. Like, I speak enough French that I could maybe ask for directions on the subway or order a coffee when I was in Paris a couple years ago. But that's about it. Like, I could not like read an entire band interview and really understand. So I like did, you know, Google lets you translate the page. I translated to English. So this is probably not perfectly accurate, but I will link this article in case anyone wants to read it, because I did think it was a fantastic read. And maybe there's someone listening to the show who speaks French and might want to check out some GC coverage in your native language. So the interviewer asks Joel if there's any songs on the album that are really special to him. And he says that Cold Song and California, which are the two slower songs on the record, are special, that he actually wrote both songs for his kids, and so they'll always be the most important songs for me. Which I loved reading that, because I think it's really cool that he, I guess, has such a strong bond for his kids, and that he is able to write things that I think in a way continue a lot of the same themes GC has always had, but his perspective is now that he's a father, and that's who he's really looking out for.
I think no, I definitely agree. I think it's really sweet and genuine that he's, you know, in a different place, but he's still he's looking out for his kids in that way too.
He says, and I'm going to read this quote, but again, note that it is almost certainly not accurate word for word because this is translated from French, and I don't know if the original conversation was in French or English. I have no idea if Joel speaks French, so I don't know, but he says, I think that I'm being very honest when I'm writing to the people that I love very much. I am trying to express something about life to them, and I hope my kids will listen to these songs one day and they will take something from it. And I thought that was really, really sweet.
Yeah, I agree. It's really sweet. And, you can tell it comes from a place of love.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so excited to talk about California because I think that'll be like a really emotional episode. As this has been and as so many of the episodes of this show are. The last review that I want to mention comes from chorus.fm, which I think is less bad than Absolute Punk, which kind of notoriously had a very difficult comment section, very critical commenters, very vocal commenters. But Chorus FM recommended this record and they liked this song. They said, Cold Song features some of the best guitar work that Billy Martin has ever done, and the harmonies between the Madden brothers make this song particularly memorable. Chorus.fm has not historically, at least like when they were Absolute Punk did not love Good Charlotte. But
I love that they gave Billy a shout out.
Yes, I know, because I feel like, and yes, it's natural that Benji and Joel would get a lot of the focus, being that they write this, most of the songs, but Billy obviously is such a big part of the band, as is Paul and as is Dean, so it's really cool to see them get shout out. So, Sam, as we wrap up, this, and I have a few questions that I always like to ask at the end, and this first one feels like a little more pertinent to ask when it's something like Little Things that's been around for 20 years, but how has Cold Song held up for you over time?
See, what I love about Cold Song, like I mentioned, it got me through, that rough patch after my engagement ended, etc. And I feel like I can, now every time I hear that song, it's always, it reminds me of how far I've come since then. And, it makes me realize how much of a better place I'm in mentally and how much I've accomplished since then. So it's kind of cool just to have like my own timeline.
Yeah, and I love that because it can be, and I think everyone has those songs, and I definitely have those songs that like you kind of can't go back to because like all it does is remind you of pain and like the shitty times. But I think this song definitely can remind people of how far they can come. I don't think this is a song that you're gonna come away from just feeling as sad as you were going into it. Or sadder.
Right, absolutely. And there was a while where I just couldn't listen to it. But
sure, which I get also.
And like, now it's been over a year now. So
yeah, like a year and a half.
So now I feel proud every time I listen to it.
Good. Oh, I love that, Sam. I absolutely love that. I'm, as your friend, I'm obviously like so glad that you're just in such a better place in so many ways.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Oh my God, of course. So what has Good Charlotte meant to you over the years, and how has that changed, or has it changed?
See, Good Charlotte has always been kind of my safe place. I always looked at them as my outlet. Like whenever I was going through something, there'd always be a record or a song that I would just kind of repeat.
Yeah.
And then being older and finally getting to go to shows and meet them during meet and greets. And it's just been so cool to finally get to tell them, like how their music has helped me over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And just seeing how sweet and genuine they are in person. And I don't remember, I can't remember if you were with me, but during one of those meet and greets, I believe it was Joel who wrote "Stick to Your Guns" from the interlude.
I don't
as
think
lyric.
I was with you. I don't think I was with you, but I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
Yep, he wrote lyrics
I
for the "Stick
love
to Your
that.
Guns." Yep, I'm
Oh
so
my
excited.
God.
And I have that on my other foot, and it's one of my favorite tattoos.
I love that. I love that. I think that's so great. And like that is an interlude, but that song is so powerful for what it is.
It really is, because, you know, just it's so short, but it says a lot in that short period of time.
Well, maybe I'll have to have you on to talk about that too.
I'm down for that.
Spoiler alert of a future episode that'll happen in several months or so down the line. Sam, thank you so much for such an awesome conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so do you have any last words about Cold Song, about Good Charlotte, or about yourself?
I just want to thank Good Charlotte for, giving me that outlet for so many years, and just kind of being that band for me.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much, Sam. Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me on Instagram. Oddly enough, my Instagram handle isn't a Good Charlotte reference. It's actually ADTR times 3, and you can find me that way.
I love it. You're versatile. That's great. Sam, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you for tuning in once again. You can follow Generation GC at Generation GC Pod, P-O-D, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you like, you can also go on anchor.fm/Generation GC Pod, and support the show on there. Supporting the show helps me make sure I can make these episodes the best they can be with the right microphones, headphones, equipment. It also helps me do things like print stickers that I can send out to you guys as a thank you. Thank you all for tuning in. Oh, you can also follow me, Molly, at M Hudelson, MHUDELSON. I think that's it. Thank you all for tuning in.